I'm going to change the subject for a sec because there is something that I've wanted to know, Rick.
Yes.
So, Spike, I don't know if you know this, but so we got the gig to open for Madonna on tour, and Rick was the Beastie Boys DJ Double R, and we played a couple shows, and then he was gone, and he said that his doctor said he had an inner ear situation that he couldn't fly. And so I thought that answer couldn't fly. And so now I'm asking you, Rick, did you just not want to do it, or did you really have an ear problem?
100% true.
Both answers are fine with me.
No, of course. 100% true. I went to the clinic on 14. There was a ear, nose, and throat clinic on 14th Street.
Oh, I know.
I had never been there before. And I went there, and they said, you have a terrible infection in your ear. You got to take these drugs, and you cannot fly. If you fly, you'll probably lose your hearing in that ear. So that was, it's funny because I don't remember us talking about it, but also maybe part of the reason we didn't talk about it was because the tour was already ongoing, wasn't it? It was like we were, so I feel like we did like,
no, you don't. You flew out, like you started the tour with us in like Seattle and Portland or something.
Yeah.
And then for some reason you had to fly back to New York, but we were still on tour, and you were supposed to meet us again, like in Los Angeles or something. And then instead of meeting us, you were like you had the ear infection.
Yeah.
Now we're finding out it was legit, but at the time we were like ear infection.
Well, I'll tell you everything. Feel free to ask me. Everything was always legit. It's like, I would have loved to. I loved being in the band. I loved doing the shows. It was completely thrilling. I loved it. I feel in some ways, it's like the universe has this incredible power to affect my ear and make me stay in one place. And then it led to me focusing all of my attention into production instead of being in a band, which could have been that could have happened. And it just sort of worked out the way maybe it was supposed to. I don't know. It feels like in retrospect, looking back, I would have never made that choice. While I'll say I didn't like traveling, I loved the experience of playing in the band. It was super fun. I thought the shows were great. Like I can remember us playing at Radio City, and just how much the audience didn't like it. And I just thought it was incredibly punk rock and fun.
Yeah.
I can remember Madison Square Garden and thinking it was just like, we're playing at Madison Square Garden. Can you believe this? We didn't have an album out. It was unbelievable.
Right. What were the shows like, Rick?
It was funny because we got to do the crazy Beastie Boys show and lean into the craziness of the sort of heel persona, the bad guy persona, and in front of an audience where it was completely inappropriate, which made it even funnier. It's like if you're doing a punk rock show in front of a punk rock audience, there's this camaraderie there. And if you're doing a punk rock show in front of people who are not feeling it, it really gets punk rock. It's like it gets elevated to this other thing, not for anybody but us. I mean, I found it thrilling. I know the audience hated it, but that was sort of part of the fun of it.
Well, I think even more than hated it, and I think that's where it became thrilling to us, was that like these 12-year-old girls, and maybe more importantly, their parents were genuinely horrified. They were repulsed. I mean, and to be right, and to be fair, we're a bunch of like little white kids yelling at them on stage, like you should be. It's like,
yeah, what was offensive?
Yeah, and for the record, like Rick, you obviously had a big. That was another thing. Like along with introducing us to heavy metal, Led Zeppelin, Sabbath, AC/DC, we also, like, the wrestling thing was never cool. That was super uncool to us, right? Because we were these punk rock kids.
It's still uncool. It's uncool to everybody.
But you had like this like vocabulary in that world, and you immediately saw like this opportunity with the Madonna tour that like, oh, no, it was like obvious to you. Like, no, guys, what do you mean? You're just going to be, it's just like wrestling. You know, you had so it's just pretty weird to think about. Most people don't think about, like, if you have a band that's going to open up for this, somebody who was like a cultural icon who you couldn't have had a bigger pop act on the planet at that moment. Madonna, like the biggest star in the world. Most people just think like, how do you put a good show together? And you saw it through this totally other lens where it's like, no, it's obvious. It's just like wrestling.
Well, the other part of it is no matter what we did, the audience was there to see Madonna and they weren't going to like what we did regardless.
Right.
So to really lean into that idea of, well, we're the bad guys here. We're the enemies, and to overcome that, to play it with all this bravado, like you're here to see me, and like it's just so ridiculous, so funny. Adam, do you remember the stuff you said? I remember you said some really funny.
Come on, you guys most remember the best and biggest line was, "I am the king of the Paramount." Like whatever theater we are at, that's how Adam would open up the show. I am the king of, Madison Square Garden.